Very bright lights. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I'm just going to start by mentioning that I think for both Marius and I, this will be the first time being a part of a panel with more than one language and a voice in the ear. So I ask that you bear with us through the session. It's a pleasure to be here and be moderating this panel, especially for the first time within the Japanese market specifically, on the topic that we think is central to the future of quantum technologies, and that's the development of regional or national quantum ecosystems specifically. Before we dig in, I think it might be nice just to do a quick round of introductions. I'm Luke, I'm Chief Revenue Officer of a company called Resonance and the Quantum Insider. We're a media and market intelligence business. Over to my colleagues.
Hello everyone, my name is Marius. Some of you know me already. I'm the Director of Strategy and Growth at Kai Ventures from Switzerland. We are the most active investor globally in quantum startups. We have offices in Canada, Singapore, now since this week in Japan. And so we cover this globally, and we would like to say that we're a quantum ecosystem builder globally, and we would love to collaborate with you here as well. So thank you for taking your time to come to this session.
So if you don't mind, I will do this in Japanese. So I'm from Classiq Technology. I'm a quantum application engineer. My name is Genki Okano. Our country manager, Tanaka, was not able to come, so I was a sub for today. So I'm very honored to be here. Let me briefly introduce myself. As you saw in the keynote, Classiq is a startup in Israel, but we have 4 Japanese members, and the Japanese team will be responsible for APAC, and we want to continue to expand our presence in APAC, and we will expand our quantum platform in Asia, and that's what we hope to do. So thank you very much. Hello, again, Terabe from Deloitte. If you heard my presentation earlier, but this is a repeat, but I am a quantum technology chief at Deloitte Tohmatsu Group. I myself have experience in quantum technology over 10 years. I worked as a researcher. I was in business development and startup investment at a trading firm as well. So I think I understand the researcher's position. I can also understand the investor and business developer's point of view. So that's how I've been really involved in the quantum market. Now, Deloitte is a consulting firm. So we provide consulting services, advisory to the government, private sector, academia, and startup. So we support business development in quantum, but at the same time, we're a little bit unique, but we also have a research branch where we have researchers and we are involved in research and development, researches as well. So thank you very much. Look forward to the discussion.
So we're seeing, to kick things off, we're seeing the foundations built in Japan already of what poses to be a world-class national level quantum ecosystem, from the national vision piece around the quantum future society, also material investments into public infrastructure and R&D looking forward. But I think anyone who's been involved in the building and deployment of local and national ecosystems knows that it takes a little bit more than that and more considered, comprehensive thought around the collaboration piece around people, institutions, and innovation and so on. So I think where we'll try to lean into today is what do the opportunities look like for Japan, and then what are the risks associated with not taking some of those key variables seriously. What I'd like to start with is a group to the panel broadly, which is why quantum ecosystems matter essentially. So why does it matter so much? What are the opportunities posed, and what are the risks of not building effectively? Over to anyone who wants to kick that one off.
Okay, I will start. From our perspective, I think we are just, as we also heard in the presentations, at the really beginning of a new paradigm shift. It's a new technology that not only affects one industry like healthcare, but really a lot of different industries, right? So it's really a very big technology that is based on research. So it will have a lot of effects, not only on businesses, but also on society. Better medication, cleaner energy, a lot of things potentially, right? But also some of the threats like cybersecurity, etc. So since we're at the beginning and the technology does not work yet 100%, we believe that ecosystem building is the only way to go. We have to work together to bring this technology to life. Research, startups, corporates, governments, hardware providers, to work on these use cases, not lose momentum, and then at some point this technology work for the benefit of society. So that's why ecosystem collaboration is key to what we do.
So there's a little bit of a delay in translation. So if you don't mind, I'm a little bit slow in reaction. But what is the paradigm shift, is quantum computing creating? I think that's the gist of the question. But I think because quantum technology is, there's a lot of, involvement of different parties, different stakeholders as a stack. There's so many layers and so many people need to be involved. And that is why building ecosystem itself is important. My expertise is in computer architecture, and I was involved in, for example, semiconductors and computer development. But when there's a new computer that's being developed, I think that the world society really has changed. So, for example, we have GPU, and as a result of that, we have seen dramatic involvement and progress in AI. But right before that, because of the development of digital computer, we have seen, big techs in digital techs becoming, like the top of the market cap. So when you say, quantum computer, of course, it, is a conversion point in a turning point in calculation philosophy. So I think this is somewhat close to the DX transformation in that sense, and the impact will be just as significant, maybe more. And I mentioned about how there's many stacks, but the user companies are necessary, and we need middleware and software in order to be able to use it. And we also need the advancement in hardware as well. What we're focusing on right now is what Classiq is doing right now. They have done a major financing the other day, and I've been following investment trend myself, but, it's been hardware that's been gathering, that's attracting money, all these years. But now, gradually companies like Classiq and several others are, so for example, in software, you see in the deep layer. So in Classiq, I would say it would be quantum circuit, for example, like, efficient compiling, or for example, error correction algorithm. We're beginning to see financing towards those, funneling into those companies as well. And I think we're shifting from, hardware to the upper layer. I think, we're seeing a more practical use on the upper layer, and that's why we're seeing growth there. So these players need to generate better synergy, and I think that's how they can continue to survive. So I think ecosystem is important in that sense as well. Then if I may, last point. So thank you very much for mentioning Classiq. I didn't explain this in my self-intro, but I was actually at RIKEN, and I was responsible for semiconductor computers. So now I'm at Classiq, and I'm on the application side, software application engineering. So, I started with the academia side, and I went to the big corp, and then I went to startups. So I had experience in a wide variety of areas. So from that perspective, maybe I can talk about the importance of ecosystem from my experience. So at RIKEN, from the Japanese government, yes, I think the research is fully supported by the government. So it's usually supported with the subsidies by the big
entities such as government. So we have to have a good connection with the government. And also back then, when I was transferred to the, things are transferred to the large enterprises, toward those realistic issues, the private sector companies are trying to have the certain connection to the future technologies such as QC. So private and also academic, the close, interest between those two segments are also important. And also it's not only a large enterprises, but startup companies. I am currently working at the startup company. From the startup company, yes, VC and large enterprises who are having money and trying to make investment, not by the government, but the large financing player, or wherever we go, you can't really do something big just with your own organization. You have to be involved in the different network with different institutions or organizations. And several years back, I was researching the hardware at Riken, but now I see a huge evolution in software and also hardware. I really have felt that trend or the shift. So why ecosystem is important? It's really difficult for me to explain, but my gut feeling, my sensibilities really tells me because of the collaboration amongst different sectors over 5 years or so, this quantum computing momentum has been sustained. So that's how I see the market.
Thank you. Marius, just to build on this piece slightly, given Kai Ventures' growing global footprint and your involvement as a business in developing ecosystems, and especially working with startups across a multitude of different ways, what are some of the key ingredients, if any, that you've seen work well in thriving quantum ecosystems that potentially, say, the Japanese market and Japanese stakeholders could learn from or consider?
Good question. So the different players I mentioned are part of the ecosystem. So we need good government support, good strategy, so that the people, society knows that there's momentum and support behind it. We need academia and research institutes to push technology and constantly evolve further. We need the startups that push technologies to the market and develop, bring the passion and the power basically to the market. We need the corporations, the industry. We need actually C-levels and board members to understand the potential value and threat of quantum. So we have, for example, an executive education program in our company to go into corporations to teach the very high management about the future of quantum and the potential impact. Because, of course, right now we see a lot of AI budgets, a lot of companies spending a lot of money on AI. But we also see that you have to prepare for quantum. In a few years, when the machines might work and some of the use cases become more clear and has tangible business outcome, then preparing for it is probably not the most efficient. It's not, I wouldn't say it's too late, but you will not be benefiting it so much than you start already now. So it's really the collaboration among them. So from a startup investor perspective, we work with actually a lot of corporations, globally distributed, large pharma companies, banks, etc., who say, hey, we don't know so much about quantum yet. So we have to make a decision. Do we want to hire people internally in our R&D units to develop products? Or should we go out and maybe find startups to collaborate with and make POCs today? And since we are the most active startup investor globally, many of them come to us and say, hey, you already did due diligence, you already screened these startups, you're in contact with many of them. Can you please help us for our use cases selecting startup partners that we can work with? And so it's, even though we are an investor, we also work with the corporations, and some work with the startups, and some decide to invest money into our venture capital fund, which is, it's called an LP commitment. So they pay some money into our fund to not having to work with one startup, but having the overview about many. So long explanation, but I think there's multiple, as you said, multiple different things.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch you could dig into. It's impossible to avoid a long answer. I think so. It feels like there's agreement that collaboration is important. I'm curious on a couple of things. One of which is where we've seen collaboration from your perspective, especially within the Japanese market. Where's it working well currently, between which specific stakeholders? And something I've noticed when speaking to different policymakers or different stakeholders in various different markets is there's often a slightly contentious question between where do you focus first? Because is it international collaboration to plug one of the gaps or the blockers that you might have maybe in startup ecosystem via partnerships, etc., or with universities and academia and research centers in other markets in order to attract top tier talent, versus the other end of the spectrum slightly, which is driving national not supremacy, but driving, like focusing more nationally and internalizing what you try to do. Like, what's the right balance to strike there from a collaboration standpoint? There's no right. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. I'm just always curious to get opinion and perspective on it.
Thank you very much. Sorry. I may not be able to catch all the questions. I may not have understood the question. Would you please elaborate the question one more time?
Sorry again, the question.
Certainly.
I might be better to be in English.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry.
Do you think it is wiser to focus more on international cooperation or strengthen national efforts first, is a more simple way to put it? Because building ecosystems to some degree requires, of course, collaboration. Given the finite pool of individuals within the quantum ecosystem currently, typically that requires expanding outside of your geographic borders in order to drive collaboration. Do you believe that there is a balance to be struck between that approach versus strengthening national efforts first? Don't know how else I can ask that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a bit difficult question, but maybe in terms of the question, do we focus on the international cooperation or do we focus on the national excellence? So yes, I think it's really difficult to see where the balance is. Well, my company is Israeli company, and yes, Israeli is trying to get a lot of use cases. And right now, I am working here in Japan. That's where we are, or that's where I am. So from this angle, well, I think international collaboration is important. I don't know which one should be more focused. I can't really say, because if we are trying to close within Japan, I don't think that's going to happen. Well, in the morning, the Shimada-san from Q-Star was talking about, yes, even though it's a government facilities, and he is representing Q-Star, even though it's Japanese facilities, they say that they also have to incorporate, collaborate with outside of Japan countries. And that was really important. That's what he said. And I agree. Well, yes, around myself, why can I say that this is important? Well, as engineer, I am working with the Israeli engineers on everyday basis. I am application engineer, so a Classiq platform is utilized to develop the use cases with my customer. In the overseas use cases, I refer to the use cases in overseas. Well, yes, I see use cases in overseas, and maybe we can actually apply the use cases to a little bit differently, but maybe we are able to leverage their use cases from outside to Japan. So yes, we are Israeli company, but for the Japanese companies, research can be accelerated by learning from the outside of Japan countries, and that could be a big push to the internet industrialization here in Japan. And also, yes, hardware. When it comes to the virtualization, maybe the investment amount, or if we have more people involved, maybe it will be more difficult. So it's more important to have the collaboration. If we are going to have a big hardware, maybe it's a huge risk if we fail. Maybe we compared to the software. So hardware failure is bigger than the software. So then maybe we have finite budget, finance, and also the manpower in Japan, and we can try an error, and maybe compared to the software try and error, it would be difficult, or it would be less when it comes to the hardware try and error. So again, for the hardware part, it's really important to learn from other countries. I'm not sure if I answered to the question or not.
I think so. No, thank you. It's a contentious question, but I tell you why I ask it on a very basic level. If you spend time, for example, I've spent some time in the Indian market, and they've done a tremendous job of collaborating with academia in the US. But the output of that is that actually there's a slight deficit or a delta now in terms of having top-tier talent in India, because what they've done a tremendous job of is developing incredibly high-performance individuals in the Indian market. And then within academia, the result, though, through those partnerships also with startups and scale-ups in the US is that top-tier talent has typically then left the country and gone over to the US. So as they're developing incredible talent within the Indian market, they then lack there is a disconnect between that top-tier talent that they've developed going into industry and driving industry from the bottoms up in the Indian market. So it's an interesting piece because that very much fits into this piece of, you can see that collaboration's incredibly important, but does it leave you dry in specific areas? And is there a piece there that needs to be considered when building these ecosystems, and how you can, the right checks and balances between collaboration and national building?
I really agree with you. Well, actually, for the first half, I agree. And then the second half, I don't agree as much. But the first half, I agree because, let's say for now, if there's a great paper out there and they're using cutting edge hardware to write these papers, and these are like using great machines where people in Japan are not able to access. And if they publish paper, because Japanese people don't have the access to these machines, they won't be able to even write a paper about it. So, the startups, with these awesome hardware, maybe we need to collaborate with them. So, for example, super cutting edge machines, sometimes have very immature software stacks. So, what would be the software that would accommodate that cutting edge machine? So we have to look at the lower layers. I don't know if that's the right to express it, but, I think those are sort of the researches that have a lot of value to the society on a real basis. And what about in terms of cutting edge machine? So GQuat, AIST has, implementing so many different types of machines, but like Quera, this is neutron atomic computer. What I'm focusing on is that if you have a cutting edge machine like that, it's basically, first launched in this country where the startup is, and that copy of it will be, implemented in Japan, for example. But, Quera's machine, this is the first gate type machine, and that started in Japan, and they dived into this immature software stack. But, if you do a try and error there, then you are able to accumulate knowledge and expertise before anyone else in the world. So that is why collaboration with outside of Japan is important. Meanwhile, the latter half, which I don't agree as much, so you can collaborate, but, sometimes there's, brain drain, like people will go and work abroad. So, but, the quantum market will probably grow post 2030. So if you want to win at that time, then you just need to really increase people, talents, that are in that industry. And of course, there will be outflow of talents, but we also will have inflow of people as well. So we need to build a circulation of that. So I believe, I agree. I'm actually for people going out of Japan or going outside and acquiring that knowledge.
No. I think that's a super perspective. I appreciate it. I don't disagree with any of your points and follow-ups whatsoever. Just conscious of time. So if we just evolving slightly through to the talent, let's stick on the talent and workforce development piece. Typically one of the largest bottlenecks or the key considerations of building ecosystems to talent development and access to top tier talent throughout from start to end of the ecosystem. What are some of the things that you believe within the Japanese market specifically we can be thinking about to try and drive talent development within Japan? Maybe Marius?
Yeah, I mean, so we just launched our operations here in Japan, and we have these international ecosystem in Europe and North America, Singapore. There's different types of talent, right? You have corporations need to upskill internal people or need to hire people. In our perspective, that's one of the things, but the other one is also entrepreneurial talent. So what we focus on is very much we make collaborations with universities, research institutes and centers, and we offer a program to teach scientists and researchers how to become an entrepreneur, how to turn your invention into a company. Because a few years ago, I'm an entrepreneur, or I was an entrepreneur and CEO of my own startup before. The only way as a researcher to go forward is to maybe become a professor, work at the university, or go to industry. And now we have this new field of saying, hey, I actually want to do something with my innovation, my invention, but I'm lacking this place to do it. I'm lacking the capital, maybe I'm lacking the team, maybe I'm lacking the education for it, the risk appetite, these things. And this is a little bit where we Kai Ventures come in and we say, hey, here is a safe space. We offer you a program to become entrepreneur. We do co-founder matchmaking. We give you access to different types of hardware. We give you some capital to start. And we found a company with you. And then we also give you access to the international ecosystem. So for us, talent is really about entrepreneurial talent as well. And also about, the second point is about, so we can hire quantum people into the corporations, but we can also do upskilling of existing employees in the corporations. So this is one point that we said, we do the C-level and an executive education on quantum, but we also work with a lot of corporates in our programs to invite them to meet quantum startups, to meet quantum researchers, to pitch their use cases and get exposed to quantum. You don't need to be a quantum physicist to be in the quantum ecosystem. You can just participate and learn. So it's really complementary. I would say quantum is partially also an engineering problem, and many of you are engineers. You're not quantum physicists. You're maybe engineers. You can be part of this ecosystem. So again, diverse answer.
I guess I will be next. Marius, you were talking about engineer, and I'm an engineer, so I was thinking about how I should answer this. But entrepreneur, so non-engineering element, I think that I totally agree with you. We can always be on the entrepreneur side. So in terms of technology, we are Classiq. I'm an application engineer, so I'm in contact with customers. But the main customers, many of them are quantum experts. They already know quantum, and they want to be able to use the tools. But there are customers who are maybe like AI experts, and they want to try quantum as well. But if it's the low-level language was very difficult for them. But maybe because Classiq has high-level language, maybe I think they can work with us. And I think a lot of customers choose us because of that capability. So one of the responsibility for us is that, quantum, I think there's just so few talents. I mean, even around me, I really don't know many people who do quantum. So I think what we can do as Classiq is to go and approach our customers and provide educational tools along with our tools. So on a bi-weekly basis, one of our engineers will go and visit the, corporate customers. And if they're good at machine learning, they already have the base, knowledge. So we can, connect that with the quantum computing. So for example, they're specialists in neural network design. And so, we can encourage them you can write a tool easily. So we go with their expertise, and then we bring in, a flavor of quantum at a time, step by step, so that eventually, of course, we want them to use our tool, but we want them to be self-implemented first, so that they have, for example, a domain expert who's able to also use quantum technology as well. And I think that's more of a realistic and feasible talent development. That's what I think.
そうですね。企業
Yes, the entrepreneur and engineers development. Yes, I think both are, of course, important. I think in the morning, I was also participating at the panel discussion with the Mr. Kihara from LDP. And Mr. Kihara said Japan is #1 in this digital era. We want to produce the company which can be GAFAM in the digital age. Well, yes, this kind of company started as a startup, so we want to have excellent startups. In quantum computing, the startup companies or entrepreneurs, they all say that the number of the talents is the big issue. The number of the engineers, the number of the scientists, that will be the key factors for them to be successful. That actually means that if we have a pool of talents of engineers and scientists, even though they are a bit late in starting up the company, they still can have the possibility to win. Well, in the global scale, there is a huge unicorns in QC area, and also there are a lot of companies which already went IPO. But now in Japan, for the last year, the hardware startup, there are a lot of potential hardware startups in Japan. And yes, there is a gap in financing, but how we are going to develop the talents in those areas, we still have some time to really see the commercialization of QC. So we do have the chance, or we do have the opportunities. We somehow have to develop those engineers. And when we think about that, how we can develop the talents? How do we have more number of those great talents? Well, yes, people who can be excited about the quantum computing technology, and also they have to feel that it can be possible to start up the companies in QC area. And we have to demonstrate that. Well, the engineers, maybe even the junior, high school students, of course, AI is getting more awareness. But when it comes to QC, quantum computing, there are many people who do not understand anything about QC. So yes, it's not industrialized yet, but in terms of the startup, these are the great startups in QC, and this is the great industry. And that way, we can broaden out the young talents for the future.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's an interesting point around the fact that commercialization, we're not at the point of fully commercializing yet QC, right? So really it's about, we have time, I think you said, to develop those engineers, that talent pool, etc. And Genki, you spoke to the fact that most people you talk to actually are quantum experts. But there is this gap to bridge when you think about actually commercializing those quantum startups and scale-ups. The end users, typically, they're not quantum experts. You have to speak a different language. That requires developing go-to-market strategies within quantum startups and scale-ups that can bridge that gap also. And we do see that there are globally quantum QC companies that are generating real revenue, typically through bookings on long-term POCs, but it still exists. So conscious, what things do we need to think about, what things do we need to do or consider to support that commercialization standpoint process, I guess, from lab to market to some degree, is want of a better way of putting it, with scale-ups and startups?
It's a good question. So we at Kai Ventures, we spent the last years building an ecosystem. There's always our slogan, building ecosystems. And partly what we do now is turning these existing ecosystem into commercial ecosystem. We don't want to create any hype around the usage of quantum and the benefits of it. But we see that if you go into industry and you, as a startup, for example, or anyone else, hardware providers, you want to get some budget to sustain and to keep on doing, you need to speak the language of the industry. We hear a lot about the use cases, right? If you're a business, literally in the end, you don't care if it's quantum, AI, blockchain, or any other technology that solves your challenge or that contributes to any business goals that you have in 2030, for example. So I think we need about communicating science, like what do I have as a startup or as someone else? How can I contribute to the business of the industry? So we as Kai Ventures, we are turning it around a little bit. We're not pitching quantum. We are more pitching the use case, and we're forming clusters. For example, we're launching an energy cluster. We're launching a finance cluster and a healthcare cluster this year with the purpose to get companies on board, industry customers on board, but also our startups, not just our startups, so any startup that want to contribute, researchers and experts who want to contribute. And the first layer will be education. You saw on the charts before, a lot of people spend money on education. So together we want to educate. And the second one is then we want to look at the use cases in open innovation style. And the third one is about then execution. Execution really means now we identified, we learned, you looked at the use cases, now we want to do something. And doing something means, for example, making a POC with a startup, founding a new startup, working on hardware, investing into a startup. There's a lot of things. So speaking the language of the industry is quite important, and not overhyping the topic, but really understanding the industry needs is super, super important. So yeah, from my perspective, if you're an industry company, we had on Tuesday, we had an event at the Swiss embassy here with Shimada-san, from the CEO of Toshiba, where we had 75 executives from corporations, all Japanese corporations, trying to learn about quantum. It's not about competition at this stage between the companies who makes more money with quantum, but it's really about cool learning from industry to industry, right? How do I start to make a POC with a startup? How do I create a quantum roadmap for my board? These kind of things. So I would say collaboration between industry is super, super important. Sorry.
いや、マリウス、僕たち
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have been working together. And so I have a candid question to you, Marius. Marius, you are interested in the Japanese startup. You are the investor who is interested in the Japanese startup. What part of Japanese startup is interesting to you, and how the Japanese startup can scale up, and how Japan can produce a lot of quantum computing startup? Would you please share your thoughts?
Question.
Okay, 1 minute. Sorry. No, it's really important for us, this topic, and thank you. Yeah, we're collaborating also, and you're doing a very great job here, also building these ecosystems. So the Japanese companies, you can grow, you can get some funding at the beginning, maybe 1, 2, 3 million, and then at some point you need to look outside to get a bigger funding round, maybe, or get a quite larger customer. And I think we want to be a little bit this launch pad, this helping hand of trying to help expansion of Japanese startups to some international market. I think this is a little bit my answer. And also, of course, we support with funding. So we can invest, and we will invest into Japanese startups here.
Thank you. I'd love to give you all the opportunity to answer this one more comprehensively, but you have 15 to 20 seconds each. one piece of advice, what is it that you would give to support that the Japanese market should consider in order to build a vibrant, sustainable quantum ecosystem over time? One piece of advice, 15 seconds each, go.
Yes, that's really tough task to do. But yes, for the QC, if you want to challenge in QC, well, yes, you have to work with the hardware company. And it was a little bit high hurdle in the past. But more recently, the software, there are a lot of startups who are at the different layers. And yes, including myself and also including others, there are a lot of interesting companies. So if you do a research, I am sure that you will find how you can start up for your own within your limited budget. I am sure that there is a way. So please do not give up and find the way. Maybe every day you have new options every day. So maybe you always try to explore the new possibilities and approach to the startup. So please approach to any startups, please. Yes. Well, yes, for me, the quantum computing, yes, we have to enjoy and building the industry. I want to have more people who are interested in quantum computing and trying to enjoy this industry. And because this is early stage, that's the reason why you can have the collaboration internationally and trying to have this a big momentum. And this is really the opportunity in your lifetime. If it's a mature industry, you cannot really, catch up with the big companies. So now you are able to really enjoy the momentum. And I hope that we are all able to build this great ecosystem.
The translation arrived in my ear. I would say just have fun and explore, be curious, really. Try to collaborate with people. The time for competition is not now, it's later. Right now, we're in starting to see the first benefits, first use cases. So if we really want to make this happen, the impact of quantum, then we really need to work together, cross-border, in the country, startup, whatever. All we have to work together. And I think amazing, Japan has such a great culture and such a great atmosphere here. So I'm very, very happy for this week. It was very amazing. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen. Inspiring answers, and appreciate the conversation. Thank you, everyone.